Greetings all. After the surprising success of the last time I did a sort of April Fool's type video, sort of painting the house and waiting for the paint to dry, there have been requests for me to do more mundane things about the house. Yeah. So, well, the next target apparently is a German vehicle. This is it. It is a 2005 Audi S4. It was my welcome back from Iraq present when, of course, being young and foolish, I had all this saved money from a deployment, and like everybody else, I bought a new car. And I have to say I very much like it, and I have kept it. It is now 15 years old, give or take, a little over 15 years, 135,000 miles. Has a few flaws, one of which I'm going to deal with right now. You will recall I have this thing about door glass regulator handles, which, of course, regulate door glass. You'll never guess what's broken in this car. The saving grace is it is not the handle and it is not a door. But the A4 body Cabriolet has 4 windows, 2 in the doors and 2 in the body at the back. And, well, the one at the back rear is broken. And I know exactly what's wrong with it because I've actually had to replace it once before. There is a little piece of plastic that the wire cable attaches to on both ends, and it provides the traction to lift and lower the glass. Well, when I replaced it last time, I used cheap material. It's like instead of spending $200 for an entire new regulator system, I just paid $10 and something for the replacement plastic piece. It turned out that may not have been the wisest move, because about a year and a half later, clang, and well, there went the cable again. So I've got to rip the whole thing apart, except this time I'm spending the extra $200 and something that Audi completely overcharges, but I don't want to have to do this again. So we now get the joys of repairing a German vehicle, which has got to be better than the tank, right? This is, of course, my garage, so forgive the wife's shoes and all the other good stuff. To help me with the disassembly of the vehicle, I have the instruction manual, as you would expect. However, there is a catch. Because the instruction manual came on a CD that is so old, I have to use this probably 2003 or so IBM ThinkPad running Windows XP in order to read the disassembly manual. So according to this, the rear window regulator needs to start off with removing the rear side trim. It's going to be a long and annoying process. I do have one advantage as I'm doing this, though, is that this is a convertible and it gives me a lot of room to play in. So first thing you do, apparently, is you take out the back seat. Fortunately, the first part is very easy. One back seat. Headrests apparently come next. Okay. You know, last time I did this, I don't remember actually taking out the back. A couple of clips were broken, but I think I'll do the shortcut. I mean, after all, this car is 15 years old, and I don't think I'm going to devalue it much more. But even the way you got to do this is really, you pull off the headrest, you pull off the molding, you then have to disconnect a few more things, large bolts everywhere, and then finally this thing comes off. Oh well, let's keep going, I guess. So I'm just going to pull out the molding. After this, weather stripping. You start taking apart a car that, when new, costs over $60,000. You really want to make sure you know what you're doing, or you have a lot of faith in yourself. I think this is going to come off next. Time to look at the manual. Remove center part, it says next. That seemed too easy. Supposedly I'm looking for a screw now. Let's see. Doesn't seem right at all. This is way too easy. My flashlight now. I do remember getting this off last time. The question is how. Dogway Hilary Doyle says that every part of the tank, the German tank of World War II, if it needed a special tool or a special way of getting it out, a tool was created for it, which seems a little bit inconvenient, but I strongly suspect that Audi has continued this policy. Hang on, what have we got? I have movement. I have movement. There we go. Well, as long as nothing breaks, if you don't hear any cracks or snaps, there's a little snap down here that looks like it got stuck. Now let's take off some of the insulation. And now, I think this lot has got to come off. Working a lot from memory here. I do note also we got star keys, just to make life a little bit more difficult for us. Some bits are starting to come back to me now. I had to get these two things. Okay. Everybody's favorite thing, the socket wrench. So, this is a German car, everything's a metric. I was wandering around maintenance day one day. All these lieutenants were just finishing tank school. They call it the 10-day war. It's a gauntlet exercise. We're on a maintenance day. And as I'm walking around, just chatting with lads, I see one guy has a tank that, well, the track tension needs a bit of work, and I'm helping him out. And say, okay, look, go. You might want to tension the track. It says, okay, sir, how do I do that? My immediate thought is to stop my jaw from dropping. I mean, he's been at the end of tank school and he still doesn't know how to tension track. So, well, first you got to open up your side skirt. So go up, get your toolkit. So he goes up, gets the toolkit, comes back down. I hand him the socket wrench and the appropriate socket for opening up the side skirt. Starts trying to crank away. I said, dude, you have it set for tight. And okay, how do I set it to loosen? I was kind of, hang on a second. You're a 20-something-year-old male and you're graduating tank school and you're a college grad and you're telling me you don't know how to operate a socket wrench? For some reason it says that you should mark the position of these bolts, and I'm not entirely sure why. But let's leave it be here. Fortunately, the guys that did this earlier have already marked the position of these bolts. Obviously, on more bolts to be undone, however. I definitely seem to recall I had to undo the loudspeaker to access this thing. One of the problems I've noticed with working with a German car is that every time I try to do something, I realize that there's a new piece I need to buy. So it takes me forever because I get halfway through, I realize I need a new tool or something. I have to go to the auto parts warehouse, auto parts shop, get a new component, come back, disassemble a bit more, realize now I need another tool. Yep, I can definitely see the problem. I just have to get at it. I do seem to recall, however, and once I get this off, once I get this bit off, I can actually pull out the entire regulator. I just have to remember to unplug the cable at the bottom of the motor. Which is down here. I'll get there eventually, as long as I can remember to put it back together again. Three, one. Yeah, that's number 2. If I remember what the third one is, I'll be doing much better. apparently I gotta remove this first. Why not? Let's add to my troubles. Last time I did this, I had this terrible habit of losing things like the sockets down inside the body of the car, and I'm there with magnets taped to sticks trying to get them back out again. Just need to remember which nut goes where. Wait, that's the third one here. This isn't the only piece of work that this car needs. Now, fortunately, Audi left a bit of a design flaw when they built this thing. So the S4 has, in this particular year, a 4.2 litre V8 engine, which is a big engine to stuff into a small sized car, and there's not much room in there to do anything. One of the problems they had with the earlier version of the S4 was that after a certain distance the timing belt would fall apart, and of course, well, you have to change out the timing belt. So their solution for this particular model was to build a timing chain which is completely and utterly bulletproof. The problem is that all the pulleys and guides that the timing chain runs over are not bulletproof, and they start to fall apart after about 125,000 miles. The only solution is a complete engine out change. And well, the car is now at 135,000 miles. Fortunately, it was all fairly low revs on the freeway. But I'm starting to get to the point where I'm reluctant to drive it because I don't know when that throttle is going to start and the timing chain falls off, and then I'm completely hosed. Of course, I am in California, in San Francisco, and I have no doubt whatsoever that the prices for an engine out change of an Audi are ridiculously high. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm relocating to Texas, well, I probably already have by the time you've seen this, I am going to see about getting it done in Texas. I'm going to flatbed this thing all the way there, and hopefully it'll save me a few $1,000s on the labor. We'll soon find out. Got to remember that these two are for the convertible control module. And I need an extender. I need a thinner extender than I have. Again, fortunately, because I've done this before, I have everything. I don't recall using a spanner last time, but I guess. This way I gotta be very, very careful not to drop anything. This might be okay. I think this falls down into here. But I've seen something come on underneath. I dropped one there. Oh, that was ugly. Okay, very carefully. Alright. Leave that next to that. And that just leads me to the fourth one here, somewhere. Here it is. I'm using 10mm, which I presume is right. At least it seems to fit. It's like a game of operation. Slowly taking out, getting it back in is going to be interesting. Woohoo! One more done. Alright. So now I can see the regulator with the 3 bolts holding it in place. They look a little bit bigger than the 10mm. I'm sure the instructions actually do say. Aha! We have victory with a... doesn't say. 13? Now for this we don't need to open it all the way. Just loosen it enough and you can lift up. It's going to be a problem. I got to get this out without the thing falling off. Because the insulation, there we go, could detach it. And the last one should be over here. I've got kind of like a little similar problem here. Alright, most of the way there. All I have to do now is just detach the plug. Lost my screwdriver, but there's an electrical connection down here that needs going. Oh yeah, another problem I have with this Audi. This is a shaft which goes from the engine itself into the air conditioner pump, or the compressor, or whatever the hell it is. And as you can see, it is not inside the engine. It's stripped. It completely and utterly stripped. It's seized, and the only way to get the stripped part replaced, which is inside the engine, is an engine out repair. So I'm just going to do the whole damn thing. Unfortunately, it's a convertible, so if it's not too ungodly hot, just put the roof down. This car is starting to become a little bit annoying. It's had quirks pretty much since I got it, but they've generally been tolerable, and the only reason that you survive it is that this is still a, well, at least was, a 340 horsepower V8 with a manual transmission, and it is a hell of a lot of fun to drive. Let's see. In here, supposedly, disconnect. Yeah. One regulator disconnected, and now, inshallah, the whole damn thing should come out. know how to do this. First thing I want to do is I want to extend the window. I want to extend the window. Hello? I'm trying to extend you. Straighten out the window. Of course, if I smash the window, then I'm completely hosed. Oh, son of a... Damages that. Need to go after it with a start crew and remove that broken thing that's still attached to the bottom end, stopping the window from going up. Trying not to scratch the glass, of course. Failing miserably here. The trial and error method of maintenance. If this glass survives, I'll be amazed. Just ain't coming. Make sure I don't drop the bloody thing. Should now come off. Should. In the operative word. Here we go. Okay, now let's see if we can get the window to come up. Yes, there is movement. There we go. Well, it'll need some cleaning. Gas regulator. Push this down again. So what broke is this little blue plastic thing. There's cabling on both ends, so this comes up and down and it takes the window with it. Obviously not so here. Now there is a saving grace, is that the motor is part of the expensive thing here, and well, the regulators come, I believe, without the motor, so let me put this down, I'll change it out. If this regulator is for the wrong side, I'm going to be extremely disappointed. Okay, we have a regulator that hopefully actually regulates this time. Alright, let's swap out the motor. Let's see, motor. 3 attachment points. Here. here and 1, 2, 3 attachment points. I'll pull the 1, 2, 3 attachment points. I got to pull the glass out again, of course. Have fun getting these glass attachments. I'm sure it's the best way of doing that. Oh well, these come next. And 3. If you're wondering, by the way, I'm doing this right in the middle of October. Beautiful weather still. And there's our motor. It's an easy swap out. Fits on very simply. If you ever sit down and you think about how how a vehicle operates, especially if you're talking about a World War II vehicle, before the advent of computer-controlled everything, you realize that they're actually extremely simple. Simple, just sit down and attack it with better logic. And a lot of the same can apply even with modern computerized cars. Now this one is this one isn't entirely computerized yet. But as you can see, if you're willing to take a bit of a gamble, and again this thing is 15 years old, so if it's so far out of warranty it really doesn't matter. Repairs on it at a professional place are going to cost you a hell of a lot regardless. If you have the ability to think logically, just have a look at it, and as you're taking it apart, try to make sure you understand how everything works, why it does what it does, and you'll find it probably works pretty simply. And as long as you have the time to devote, alright, that is the motor swapped out. Now the fun bit, the glass. And I'm going to go look at the manual again. Okay, look it up, it's actually a little bit easier than I thought. Although messy, there's grease all over this thing, so I'm going to clean this. But all you do is you just lift the regulator up to the very top, the glass, and you have access to the 3 nuts. Of course, adjusting the window afterwards, calibrating it, is another matter entirely, but one problem at a time. Let's try 10mm first. Aha, it works. Of course, the thing says be sure to wear gloves and safety glasses when working with glass. well, what can you do? And all this for the sake of a $10 part. These things are torqued down surprisingly tightly, actually. So one thing that worries me about this whole process is torquing the things back in place. If I slightly overdo it, I'm hosed. So, held in place by a little angle bracket. So I'll be doing to give it a bit of cleaning, I guess. Oh well. So I do need to keep these nuts. Ah! They're basically built-in washers as well. Good. And you can see there's a piece of plastic here on the inside, so my fears about overstressing it probably are, hopefully the plastic will squish before the glass does. And this last one is going to be there. Okay, let's try this. And again, there we go. And the end of this regulator. Put this one in. Right, now I have the glass swapped over. The next thing I have to do is figure out how on earth to adjust it so that it actually fits correctly. Fortunately, I think that's in the manual. Now that I'm halfway through, time for a beer. Apparently adjustment is done, well I guess it makes sense, after everything is assembled again. But before you put back the loudspeaker so you can still access the nuts, and well that's where your answer is. So, yeah, just torque it down just a little bit more. Make it didn't fall off. You know, the vibrations will loosen this thing a bit. I'd have a bit loose, I guess, for a possible gap than overly tight. There's probably some set amount that you're supposed to tighten this. But since I don't know what it is, by the way, it's not a product placement, it's what's in my fridge. And we gotta put it back in again. I'm gonna loosen these up just a tad if I can. The bigger one. Oh, okay, they're already tightened. Well, loosened, sorry. Alright, so the fun bit is now there are 3 little slots in here I gotta put them down into. So what will happen is that the little C-clamps, I guess for lack of a better word, slot into here, so you have to have a distance the correct way, the correct distance in, that the nut fits in between these 2 gaps. And as you can see, there's 3 of them. There's one down there and there's another down under there. And also, fortunately, it's already up, so I don't have to worry about the motor. So let's see how we do. I should be out too far. Okay. One goes here. Probably missing the other 2 already. See the other 2. Okay, that's one there. First one there, and hopefully, yes, all 3 are in position. Hallelujah. Let's tighten them up. So the last thing to do is hook up the motor again and see what happens. The motor went. Here it is. Moment of truth. My keys. Sound good? It's just a little bit of vibration. The window regulator now regulates. Sorry, the glass regulator now regulates the glass. Now I have to adjust it, put everything back together again. We're about to demonstrate the 3rd flaw of the 2005 Series S4. The rear window is glued by a special technique to the canopy. And the glue after a while starts to fall apart. And apparently cannot be re-glued. So they tell me. Officially, the only answer is to do a complete new canopy with a new window, and it's $2,500 or something like that. At least it was 5 years ago when I checked. So what I'm doing now is I'm just using sort of silicone sealant once a year and I'm putting it back together. But there is now a hole in the back of the canopy. Sometimes this car is more trouble than it's worth. But then you get in and drive it, and all is forgiven. All right. So next thing down. And I guess I'll put in some of the striping to stop the hitting against the edge of the body. If I can remember how to reverse this. Okay. Start off with this piece of metal here. Make sure nothing falls down, because if it does, you get an episode of the house. And I think it's going to work. Amen. Last time I did this, there were a couple of pieces left over, which is a little embarrassing. The glue is starting to come off of the insulation here. Again, 15 years old. The wife and I would like one day to do a project car, like a classic 60s, 70s muscle car. The problem is, well, there's two problems. The first is I'm not sure we have the time and money for it. After all, I would like that M3 Scout car as well, and I certainly don't have the time and money for that. The other is, every time I decide I want to do something like this, or change the brakes, or what have you, it always turns out to be a lot more trouble than I initially thought it was going to be before I started. And it kind of worries us that most of the project cars you find nowadays for these old classic cars, the easy ones have already been done. And you're stuck with things that seem like a much better idea in theory than in practice. We'll see. Ah! Bollocks! I'm not sure how I'm going to get that one. And unless I'm wrong, the only way to get that one back is to undo everything. I gotta open up everything to get that damn bolt. Always happens. Always bloody happens. Of course, it's the last one as well. If I'm really lucky, if I take this top one off, I might have access. We'll see. Alright.
Hi, husband. Kid's hungry.
Gotta feed him then.
Past you. Alright, come on, kid.
Oh, it's so close. Fuzzy bit off my microphone also came down there. Oh well. Well, I don't see anything else that's not supposed to be down there. And take two. Whatever. Could this be done better by somebody who knows what they're doing? Yes. Is it worth the dollars? No. Not unless this thing suddenly decides it's going to become a collector car. In the same vein of those 60s muscle cars. You know, 40 years from now. Oh, you've got one of the, I think there were 600 of these V8 Cabrios that were brought into the US. And my beer is getting warm. Okay, this time we'll start with the fiddly one. This seems to be the inside. Back for that. definitely the. So here. Yes. Okay. So this way, this comes down into the top here. There's a little notch. There's 2 notches. And here. This plugs in here. There you go. Yeah. This goes in here. This. Ah. Outside, which means I have no idea when the battery died in this camera, but now it's time to put the roof up and see how the glass fits compared to everything else. Wonderful. Fortunately, no extra scratches on the paintwork. There's plenty enough already. Waterproof. Alright, one thing at a time. Let's try this first. Let's see what it looks like. Could do it coming up a bit more. Going forward a tad as well. Alright. One problem at a time. Wait, I'm supposed to get it all 3 that way? This roof being too big is a problem. Here's hoping. think I might have actually got it. Oh, all the scratches. Anybody know a good body place in San Antonio? This goes back to what I was saying earlier about understanding how something works. Bearing in mind in World War II, a lot of Americans were familiar from tractors and their Model A's or Model T's, whatever they had. In the 1930s, a lot of them would have probably been done, I guess. But the basic principles of what makes their home car or home tractor work apply to a tank. So it's very easy for training and even on the fly shade tree mechanic work, shall we say, in tank units. And somebody to figure out, okay, there's something just wrong here and fix it themselves. So now that this all seems to be working, it's time to put the trim back in and hope for the best. But first, more beer. It's starting to get warm. Somewhere in here is the fourth screw for the loudspeaker, and I can't find the bloody thing. So I'm just going to hope that it's nowhere where it'll rattle around too much or puncture a fuel line or anything, because I spent 15 minutes looking for the bloody thing and it ain't showing. So wherever it is, I guess I'll live with that. I mean, the loudspeaker is held in place pretty solidly with just the remaining three. I'm not going to complain too much. There's no vibrations. So. I have fun, but it's put this one back in. Yeah, might be insulation first though. Remember how it goes back in. Okay, this is way too low. This was much higher. So, pull this in again. Remember where I did this? It's up here. Leave that up while I figure out why a nerf is not starting right. so back there in the right places. And I'm done. Let's see. Close enough, the seatbelts are in. Almost there. Just fits into place somehow. And job done. I'm not sure I can necessarily recommend doing this on your own, but it can be done. So there you go. Chieftain does something mundane in the house. Have a good summer.